Hey guys, I just saw The Ritual last night on Netflix and I have to talk about it because I don't want to overhype things because I hate when people overhype things and then you end up not really liking it. But for people who like suspense thrillers, um, I got scared. I was scared a couple of times. And, if you've seen some of my movie reviews before, that doesn't normally really happen. So basically, the full premise of the movie, and I will definitely say spoilers in this review, so please do not watch this if you haven't seen the movie. But the premise of the movie is sort of four best buds. Two of which sort of go into a convenient shop that's happening to be robbed, and one hides while the other gets roughed up and eventually dies. And the three friends then continue on with their friendship. They go hiking, and there is sort of this resentment with the other two, saying, if only you would have done something instead of hid, maybe our fourth friend would still be alive. So that's sort of the underbelly of what's going on with their friendship. But the three friends that are remaining, they decided to go hiking, take a little hiking, like getaway, and they are on this sort of like expedition. I would never, like, I'm literally from Queens, and even that part alone is scary for me. I think that's why the movie was so scary for me, because I was looking at the forest and I was like, this is terrifying. Like, I don't even need any supernatural thing to be in the forest. Like, me just literally being in the forest, isolated, not knowing where I am, is terrifying. It was very Blair Witch Project meets Deliverance. I feel like that, like my husband said, this feels like a Swedish version of Deliverance. And I did feel that with like a little sprinkle of Blair Witch as well. So I was scared about just like being hiking in the forest, like in the dark, they're lost, they can't find their way back. Like, to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like what are they gonna do? I mean, I didn't even need anything beyond that, because if I don't have a house attached to my house, there's not enough people around me. But as the story progresses, we learn that they stumble upon some sort of supernatural witchcraft, voodoo. You don't know what it is. There's all these symbols carved into the trees, and then there's all these like really weird sort of supernatural looking things that they find. And as the story progresses, you learn that they are knee deep in some place they do not want to be. And to be honest with you, as I was watching it, I kind of hoped in my heart that it wasn't a supernatural being, and that it just was crazy people in the forest, like, that just want to eat them. I was kind of like really hoping. I was like, please don't make this be a being. Like, I did not want it to be a being. But as we progressed, they started having hallucinations, and the hallucinations really helped bring the story along as far as helping understand where people's thoughts were and where their guilt lied. And so I sort of said to myself, well, okay, like, I guess we need the supernatural being to see these hallucinations in order to get to better understand the characters. So then I sort of gave into the notion that we are going to have sort of this demigod or whatever it was that they were fighting. And, there was some foreshadowing in it. Like, at one point, there were two people left, and one guy said, I will not leave you. I will not run off without you. And, when he said that, I was like, okay, so, he's going to be the last guy surviving. Like, you sort of like, the guy who you thought was the weakest link ends up being the guy who sort of is able to survive the whole thing. And that was sort of expected. Like, I wish in some way that the victim of the story, the weakest link of the story, he's not a victim, but the guy that you weren't rooting for, I kind of wish that he wasn't the one that survived, because that is just too obvious. Like, it's too obvious that the broken soul is the one that is going to find it within himself to defeat. Like, I would have preferred it to be one of the other four, like some other random person that then we get to know, just because it would have been so much more different than your typical like horror screenplay. But that's not how they played it. And then I did also like how the way that he was able to, once he escaped out of the forest, that was the end of the fight. So once he cleared the trees, the Loki's son or whatever he was couldn't go past that barrier. Like that god, that demigod was only able to exist within that space. And I kind of like that too. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But you know, the defeated character was able to redeem himself. He fought against this demigod. He sliced him, and he did what he had to do. He found it within himself. And then you say, well, why couldn't you do that for your friend? But I don't, you know, it's like a coming of I don't know, coming of man. I don't know what you want to say. Like I didn't like love that part. Like I was like, I'd rather he have died, or I'd rather he have become part of the Swedish sort of community that was built, and that like I would rather he have just become one of the unnaturals that lived in the forest. I just don't like things when they're too predictable, and that felt very predictable to me. But overall, I will say, as I was watching it, there were just definitely moments that really captured me and made me feel like, okay, like I'm freaking out right now. And again, I don't know if it's because I'm so much of a city dweller that I actually fear camping. Like my kids are dying to go camping, and I'm like, no, like we can't do that. Like that sounds horrifying. Camping sounds horrifying. So me watching a movie of just people hiking is horrifying. I'm already at level red, and nothing has happened. I was at a level red the minute they stepped foot on the mountain. Like I was already like perspiring. Like I was like, what is gonna go? Oh my gosh, they're in the forest. No one can hear them. So maybe I like this movie a little bit more than other people. Like if you're really comfortable with silence and openness and just the wilderness and being alone, like if you're okay with those things, like maybe this movie just will be okay with you. But if you're like me and that like freaks you out, like this movie it actually made it that much better, I think. Oh, and also I want to say the Loki's son or whatever he was, I don't know his name, the demon. I kind of like the way that they drew him, because he was normally like an animal, but then when he stood up at the end, you could see that there was a person on the top. So I was like, that's really cool. Like I like the way that they did that. That was very different. I'd never seen anything like that before in the media, like, or in a movie. I couldn't pull from a memory of another like movie where he looked like a really oversized moose, but then when he was trying to get the guy to join him, and he had the main character sort of bowing down and praying to him, he stood up, and you could see a man on top of him almost doing like a yoga position. And I was like, oh, there's a man underneath that animal-like body. So I was like, that's kind of cool. I like that a lot. But that's it. So I definitely suggest you should see it. It's called The Ritual. It's on Netflix. I was trying to do a little bit of reading about the movie before I jumped on, and it looks like I don't know. It was from the Toronto Film Festival is all I got. I'm not sure if it was ever supposed to make it to the big theater or not. But Netflix snatched it up, and I'm glad they did. So it's on right now. Go check it out. And until next time.